I was going to be an artist. And I come from a family of artists. My mom's side, she has 2 brothers and 1 sister that are all professional artists. And so it just was never a question in my mind what I was going to be when I grew up. And it's always been art for me. So I got my BFA from Brigham Young University. It's been a while since then, but I did get a lot of training there. And it was great because it's a conservative university, so they really teach you the basics of the fundamentals of painting. And so I got a really strong background with that. And from there I was able just to develop my own style using a palette knife to paint with really thick textures in certain parts of the canvas. I call it textures of life. So certain parts of the canvas, for instance, like the mountains or water or the distant fields, would be smooth as they would be in nature. And then the other parts, like the foreground of a meadow or the chunky thickness of trees, I would build up with lots of layers of thick texture. It's kind of like sculpture, really. I think every year I get a little thicker and thicker. Soon it's going to be the sculpture coming out of the canvas. I don't know what we're going to have, but it's pretty unique because it's extremely thick. And I want people to be able to walk up to my painting and I welcome them to touch it, which normally you feel guilty if you try to touch a painting, or we've grown up with our parents saying, don't touch art. But I welcome people to touch it because I think it's part of the whole experience. We're using our sense of touch, our visual senses, and a painting invokes all of the senses. And I welcome people to come up and touch the work. They've all been heavily varnished, my paintings, so you really can't hurt them. But I want the bark of the trees to really feel like real bark, or the petals of a poppy to feel like an actual flower that you can pick. For me, I have to see with my own eyes the landscapes that I paint. For instance, I tried to paint a lavender field and I didn't understand how the clumps of lavender were formed. And so the painting turned out flat and I wasn't really happy with it. So I decided to go to France, and I found the region of France outside Avignon where they supply 60% of the world's lavender. And so you can just drive for miles and see purple fields after purple fields. And I stood there and I studied how the lavender grew and the scent and every little part of that herb. And I took thousands of pictures and sketches. And when I brought it all back to the studio, I had a much better grasp of how I wanted to paint a lavender field. Because with my texture, I sculpted on how it would grow in nature, so the different clumps of the lavender became like a real life field, and it was 100 times better. And so for me, I get inspiration from my travels, from the places that I visit. I really like to experience it firsthand, and it makes a much better painting when I do that. The best compliment I've ever received, and it's actually the most frequent one, is that my paintings make people happy. And I just love that. I love when someone walks into my studio and they see my paintings and they just feel happier, and they tell me, they're like, these paintings just bring me joy, and that to me is so important. That's why I paint. I just want them just to have that moment of peace. I want them to be able to hang the work in their home and be able to look at it every day and feel happier.